Welcome back to True Story with John Gibson. Today's guest is Lori Zanini. She is a registered or RN, correct?
Registered dietitian, RD.
Registered dietitian. Thank you. Mother, wife, author. Thank you so much for joining.
Yeah, John, it's my pleasure.
Absolutely my pleasure. I have 101 questions, but I'll keep it to 10 or less. I promise. First and foremost, again, in full disclosure, it's so rare I have an opportunity to do this, but Lori and I sort of grew up together. We went to school together. This is like the first conversation we've had in many, many years. So I'm so excited to catch up and ask so many questions, but you've really done so many significant things since we've talked last. So I look forward to really picking your brain.
Yeah. 20 years goes by fast. It's crazy.
Oh, like too fast in the weirdest way, right?
It's so weird. Yeah.
Well, with that, tell me, we'll go high level. We'll start high and then get more narrowed down. But I guess first and foremost, so what attracted you to health and nutrition, and then ultimately like choosing that as a career path?
Yeah, that's a really good question that I get often. People are like, were you always interested in, like health and nutrition, that kind of stuff? And I think the answer is no. I don't think that I really was. I remember in college, I think I was more interested in like a helping profession, and I didn't really know what that looked like. I remember in college, I looked into like social work, into nursing, into a lot of different things. And then, whenever I found dietetics or like the science of nutrition, that seemed to work really well for me. I didn't really know what that would entail. And there's a lot of different like career paths that you can do as a dietitian. And I've worked in a lot of different capacities at this point, but I really enjoyed it. I've enjoyed the relational part of it, where you get to talk to people about, because when you talk about what people eat, you actually learn a lot about people, and their life and what life looks like. And so I enjoy that part, but then I also enjoy like the science of it, and really seeing how like the studies and the science can really make like impacts that impact people's health that gets them to like experience life more, and for me, that's what it's all about.
Oh my gosh, incredible. So I wish I would have, I'm with you. And I follow a lot of sort of the content you put out, but moreover, I wish I would have like understood the concept around some of the basic things you sort of discuss and focus on, just around blood sugar and monitoring and sort of some of these things for many reasons, overall general health being one. But two, as somebody who was like an athlete forever, competing probably too long, I really could have benefited from some of the basic knowledge around like monitoring glucose and eating the right kind of sugars and carbs. So I guess with that, let me ask this question. How do you feel that maybe becoming a dietitian all personally affected you, and then ultimately how compelled to help others?
Yeah, that's a really good question, John. I think that it's kind of been a journey, right? Because I think in the very beginning, I was very inundated, especially like in school, right?
Yeah.
You're learning like the concepts, the basics, the science, so much of it. And then you get into the real world, right? And then you are confronted with people that have all these opinions and, like you said, kind of like piece things together. And that's a lot of like what is the problem a lot of times, where people have just had such misinformation thrown at them. And and I always tell people it's not their fault. I always say like the food has failed you in some ways, because I think sometimes people feel like it's their fault.
Sure.
They do something wrong, or they're doing something that's raising their blood sugar. And I say the food, I don't know. So I think it's evolved in that it started out for me very like the facts, the science, all of that. And then as you get into working with people one-on-one and face-to-face, you realize you have to build connections with people so that they trust you in order to be able to like really help facilitate their changes. And now at this point, I guess I've been a dietitian for about 15 years, going on 15 years. And now for me, the number one priority, and then having kids, I think this changed it too, having kids is a good relationship with food. Like that's number one, right? Like not having these food rules, not like being too strict on yourself. And there's like such a fine line, right?
Sure.
It's a tough balance to teach, and it's a tough balance to follow. But yeah, for me personally, it's like number one, like making sure you have a good relationship with food, that you enjoy food.
Yeah.
And number two, make sure that you're nourishing your body in a way that provides energy, that helps you feel good, that helps you like live your best.
Right. Gosh, and it's like so important, these tenets, right? And they are so kind of hard to follow. And even for like me, I'm somebody who like, I like to believe I know enough to say to myself, hey, you know better, drink more water, do these things. That can be simple daily practices, but I often fail myself. It's very seldom I kind of hit those goals. So I guess what tips or what have you found maybe through your work when like working with people? Because you touched on something really fascinating to me there. You said you're building like long-term trust with them. And so I guess while you're sort of establishing that, what is that process like is what I'm asking.
Well, I think so. When I first started working as a dietitian, I worked in a hospital
Oh,
for
cool.
about 3 or 4 years. So in hospitals, what dietitians do is calculate like tube feedings, they calculate IV nutrition. So basically, like when people's stomachs aren't working in some capacity, they calculate based on their labs, literally like how many grams of protein, how many grams of everything that they need, down to like the minute, like detail.
It's fascinating.
And then and so that was what I was doing, right? That was not my passion, because
Sure.
and I don't know how to say it very well, but you could never see outcomes, I guess. And so for what I would never see, like, how did they do? How did this help them? How did they do when they got home,
Right.
And so while I learned so much clinically, and it was a very valuable experience, like from that angle, I knew that I wanted to be able to see, how nutrition and how everything like impacted people's lives,
Yeah, sure.
be able to see outcomes. So that got me kind of more into like the outpatient thing, and then further eventually to my own practice. But what I noticed was that a lot of times doctors will only have 5-10 minutes with people, and I would have sometimes like 45 minutes, an hour. So I would see a lot more. I would people would just share more with me sometimes,
Yeah,
and
sure.
so that was where kind of like it shifted some for me. I don't know if that answers your
No,
question.
it makes perfect sense. And I think from a personality perspective, I feel like it's such a better fit. It makes such sense, but it totally makes sense. Clinically, it's such a great way to learn that and apply that knowledge. But I can understand how that would be very transactional. And if you're somebody that wants to see the outcome, you can't do that in that setting. So it would make sense to sort of evolve forward to me. That makes perfect sense. Yeah. And honestly, with nutrition too, I mean, I just feel like time is our friend, in most cases, right? I mean, you want to have 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months of data and, to go and then really track progress, you hope. So, yeah, awesome. So the $1 million question, what led you to writing your book?
Yeah, so I've actually written two. I don't know if I
Oh,
told
I'm
you that.
sorry.
So this is
Yeah.
the second one, but the second
Okay.
one has been. I'll tell you like kind of the progress.
Please.
But
Yes.
I think I was a dietitian for probably about 5 years before I kind of got led into the diabetes route, and so I just really started to have. Here's what started it. I worked at an aerospace engineering company
Wow.
in LA.
Okay.
And I was like their corporate wellness dietitian. So I was in charge of like keeping the employees healthy on
Wow.
site. So I would do like programming, I would do talks, I would do like all these different things. And so one day I got this idea: when people walk in the door to go to their office, I'm going to have a table set up. And if people want to check their blood sugars, they can check it. Obviously, there were disclaimers and, like things they had to sign, right? All the medical stuff. And so I sat there and I just checked people's blood sugars that wanted to check it. And we found people's blood sugars were like 300s, 400s. They had no idea. And so it
Wow.
kind of got me on this thinking, I started thinking, gosh, like these are people that, like, I don't live in a rural area. I'm in Los Angeles.
Right.
These people have jobs, so I know they have health insurance, they have access to all these things. And still, like, this statistic of, like 1 in 4 people that have diabetes don't know they have it was like playing itself out in front of me.
Yeah.
And so that just like, it just blew my mind,
It's
you know?
compelling. Yeah. Yeah.
It really, because I was like, okay, if this is what I'm seeing in front of me, like what does it look like for the rest of the world and the country? And so I just
Right.
went on this path to like learn all I could about blood sugar management with food. And so I got another certification. So I'm a diabetes educator as well. And that led me to working in like a doctor's office where I only taught diabetes all day, every day.
Wow.
And then that led me, and then that medical group that I worked for had a need for like someone that would work in the media. And so like if they were trying to promote their medical group to like the local news, they needed someone to do that. And so I started doing that. And then that led me to becoming a national media spokesperson for the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, which is based in Chicago, by the way.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And yeah, and so it's like the professional organization of nutrition professionals.
It's amazing. Wow.
And so I did that for 3 years, and I did a lot of media interviews. And so what I finally figured out that I was good at is that I'm good at, I'm not good at a lot of things, right? But I was good at figuring out the science and like relaying it clearly to the public in a positive way.
Right.
Because I think a lot of people, when they have diabetes, they look online, they like Google it.
Sure.
Like a lot of bad news, you know? And so my purpose, I felt like, was to say, here's how you can do it, and here's a positive way to do it. And so my publisher found me. I wasn't actually looking.
Amazing. Yeah.
To and so I know when we were like, we're going to talk, everyone's always surprised at that. Like I didn't write a proposal or anything like that. And I know a lot of people have always asked like if I have advice for it, you know, and I don't, because it was a very non-traditional route that led me here. Yeah.
Well, thank you for not letting me rush that, because oh my gosh, what an amazing journey. Amazing. And I actually was so interested in learning how you chose that as like a core. So thank you for kind of expanding on that. Well, okay, let me say this first, I guess. What an important topic, diabetes, right? And what an interesting scenario you just detailed for me, seeing that statistic play out in front of you. Like that's mind boggling. And what an interesting thing, you know, there's two things you touched on there that actually like were really relevant and kind of blew my mind. The fact that these individuals had health insurance and like reasonably had resources, right? So you sort of made like a parallel to what about the larger society who may not have all of those things. And I was like, oh my goodness, like that's very, very compelling. So your work is so important. It's so important. And I also agree, like, I really appreciate, Lori, your perspective on this. And it's not doom and gloom. And there's ways to, you know, take active and action and in your own healthcare. And with that, like, you know, explore nutrition and other things around that. So what was your first book? Let me write that down because I'm going to buy it and I'm going to order it.
No, I'm going to send it to you. Don't even worry about it. The first one is called Eat What You Love.
Okay.
Diabetes Cookbook. And that actually was like a play on like Southern comfort foods, but made healthier.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So that was like the first one. And that came out in 2016 when I had like a 10-month-old baby. So I don't really recommend.
Oh my God. What a year. That's amazing. I had a note here too, which I just saw. I wanted to ask you because I thought it was so unique and like, it's very, from a dietitian, or it's like very unique. I think from my perspective, I've just never seen it very commonly done. Are you still offering like meal plans, like 7-day meal plans?
Yeah. So, okay. How do I explain that? Yeah. I mean, yeah, I have a 7-day meal plan. So after the first book came out, this one that I just mentioned, what I realized was that it did better than like we anticipated. And I was like, yeah, because this whole, like, we need positive things. Like people, when they're diagnosed with diabetes, they feel like they have to like eat totally different like food than the rest of their family.
Right.
And the reality of it is it's just balanced, healthy meals, you know, that everyone can benefit from. And what I also realized in my practice was that a lot of people found like, so this kind of goes with like what you and your wife are doing too. Like there's a big stigma around type 2 diabetes, especially. People feel like it's their fault. Yeah. And they feel like they did something wrong. Right. And so they don't like if someone's oftentimes when someone's diagnosed with type 2 diabetes or pre-diabetes, they don't tell their best friend, they don't talk to their family about
So
it.
sad. Yeah.
They go online and they Google it.
Right.
And so what I was finding is that people would find really weird things on Google, right? We all can find weird things on Google, but I was like, we can't, I don't know. I just wanted to be part of the solution so that people wouldn't find juicing, the first thing.
Right.
Because I had
go extreme.
Because in like the week or two where people would wait for an appointment, it would come back like they would come back with some weird things that they had found. So my husband and I in 2017 we started a business that it's called For the Love of Diabetes. And so it's just like an online nutrition education program. So people can get the same kind of education that I would provide in person, but like online. My husband's background is digital marketing. So that first book was kind of like the inspiration for it. And so to answer your question.
No, I'm with you. Yeah.
The 7-day meal plan that I offer, like the free one, it's kind of like an intro into my strategy and philosophy.
I love it.
It kind of leads you down like it provides a lot of free resources. And then if you need more in depth, then like the program is an option.
Yeah. Thank you for, great. No, that's awesome. Thank you for expanding on that. And what a great strategy, like for both to help people sort of ease into it and give an online free resource. I love the concept of your first book too. I literally have someone I want to give it to. So, and I hope this isn't oversharing, but someone very dear to our family, our son's nanny was recently diagnosed type 2. And literally, as you are detailing that to me, I'm thinking about her. And she's changing her whole diet, and she's, like with all the right intent, right? But if it doesn't have to be so extreme, I would love to help her. So I feel like what a great solution. This book maybe. Well, let's talk about your new book too. So is it specifically based for the newly diagnosed? Is that correct?
Yeah, it's for people that are newly diagnosed with type 2. So it's like half like information, and then half cookbook and meal.
Oh, really?
Okay. So recipes and stuff like that.
Perfect. Okay. So I guess, are you still doing outpatient counseling with type 2 diabetics or anything like that?
I just see I only see clients 1 day a week now. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And I guess just for long-term care and diet plans, just sort of that kind of management?
Yeah, really the people that I see on a one-on-one basis are, they actually tend to have type 1 diabetes. So they're on insulin.
Oh, I see.
And so we're like tracking their blood sugars and how the food is impacting it and stuff like that. If there was like 10 of me, I would do way more, but
I understand. No, I understand. May I ask, and this is like, there's no right or wrong answer, just in your experience or opinion, and I'm just curious, are you seeing in general numbers or statistics, this just isn't something I'm monitoring, or is the general public, are things improving? Are they not improving? Do you feel education's getting better? I mean, what is the outlook right now in the environment?
That's a really good question too. I don't know. I think COVID 2020 kind of like threw a wrench in a lot of the progress that was being made. I think
it makes sense.
It's hard on all of us,
Of
so
course.
I think that, I think it's hard to gauge. I feel like, I think actually in the pandemic, what I found is that a lot of people were kind of, we were always hearing on the news, like if you have a pre-existing condition like diabetes or hypertension and stuff like that. And since people were at home, I think that they were kind of like trying to like find other solutions and like improve their health in some ways. But I think it's complicated, I don't think it's like a linear path for a lot of people, but I don't know how much it's improving or not, but I think people are a lot more aware these days. I think something that's kind of challenging is a lot of like the all or nothing thinking, so I think people feel like they either have to do keto or they have to do fasting. And I'm pretty like, I support anyone that wants to do like whatever path that they choose is best for them, but it doesn't have to be like that. It can be just eat normal food.
I love that you touched on that, because look, I'm a jock and I've tried it all. So I've done it all. I've done it all. I just have done it all. So with that,
you.
I'm sorry.
How did it work for you?
Well, I guess it depends on what I was doing in comparison to activity output at the time, right? Because
Mhm.
it's like, sort of, but I'll say keto was pretty good for my body, I feel like.
Yeah.
I don't, it was pretty good, but
Mhm.
it's not a diet I liked in particular. And same thing with like Atkins. Like I operated really well on those things.
Mhm.
Physically, I feel like aesthetically, like I looked good, I got lean, those things, like all the silly things that shouldn't matter were cool,
Yeah.
but my energy was pretty low and I didn't like a lot of meat. I don't crave a ton of protein, which is pretty counterintuitive, but so I haven't really found like it's interesting actually. Let me ask you if you're familiar with that. Are you familiar with Zoe? It's like a blood sugar monitoring kind of diet. So my wife is doing it and a couple of
Zero,
her friends as well, but they put on a
ZFE?
like a glucose monitor on their
Yeah.
arm for like a week. And then
Okay.
they're supposed to eat like designated muffins or something. And then they're monitoring high carb one day, high fat one day, whatever. So I
Okay.
like the
Is
science
it,
behind it, but I
but
haven't
it's
seen the results.
ZO? ZO or Z?
I think it's ZOE maybe or
Okay.
ZO. Maybe. I don't know.
I'll look it up. Yeah, I haven't heard of it.
Okay, I'll send you a link to it. And I just totally did the worst product endorsement for them. So hopefully they
So
forgive me.
how's it going? So you said there's like high carb days, low high fat days.
So it's actually super intense. Like they're monitoring, it's like a week or two. The glucose monitor, you're sending in saliva samples in a tube and even a stool sample. I don't know how they're collecting that, but they have a box and a bag. And they're prepackaged like muffins. And you'll fast until a certain time, and then you'll eat these 3 dense muffins in 30 minutes or 45 minutes, which is something I could never do. Like I'm not a big bread guy, so I couldn't hammer 3 of these things. But each day they have different content and ingredients. So like one day they'll be very high fat and very, and the next day complex, like a simple sugar, or then a complex dense. So I love the premise and the science, but I haven't seen her results or really kind of asked her how she's felt. So I don't have any feedback to share yet, but I like the idea of it. And I like the approach of saying like, just having the awareness of monitoring blood sugar, I feel like just helps one understand energy levels better, right?
Yeah, I think information is helpful, like
Mm-hmm.
having data to like whether it's blood work, whether it's, like blood pressure, all these different things. Like I always tell people are tools to understanding like what works best for your body, like the health status like that you have overall. So
Mm-hmm.
that's cool. I'll look into it.
Yeah, and I'll send you what I can. But let me ask you, in your expert opinion, I mean, for the average person, from a diet perspective, what do you recommend?
Gosh. Okay. So I think it's individualized. I do. I don't think
Okay.
there's like I don't think that there's necessarily like a one size fits all because we all have like different
I love this
schedules.
answer. Yeah,
Yeah, I know, right? This
I
is probably
do.
not what she wanted, but
No, I love it. No, it's so real. But please, yeah, go on. Yeah,
yeah,
this is
it's
good.
just like I think like in practice, right? Like what you realize is people, yeah, I mean, we're all different ages. We
Right,
have different genetic factors. We have different like lives, and it's just
right.
there's so many different things. And I think that's what is really important for people to keep in
Mhm.
mind when they're looking at like what their favorite influencer or celebrity is eating throughout the
Yeah,
day. It's like, but what makes you feel good and
yeah,
what kind of like I always tell people, what is your health goal, right? So
yeah.
some people might
I love
like
that.
want to build more muscle or they want to like lower their blood pressure or whatever,
Yeah.
but what's the health priority? What's the number one thing? But with all that being said, I will say that like I always tell people my number one priorities, if anyone wants to know, is I go for like I try to eat as many vegetables as I can. I try
Mhm.
to eat at least like 25 grams of fiber a day, and
Mm.
then I move and drink water. Like because I think that those are because I think too often we're thinking about like what we should eliminate, right? Today,
Right.
like don't eat this, don't eat that, don't eat too much of that. But if we really focus on what really is going to benefit our body the most, then
Mhm.
naturally the things that aren't as helpful kind of like
Mhm.
see their way out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, what a great answer. Yeah. And it's so true. Just kind of if we can make any change, just focusing on the elements we can control that we know our body needs. Like everybody needs more water, a little activity, fiber. You said fiber, you're right. Like, yeah, this is why dietitians are super important, people.
real
Yeah.
food. Yeah.
So what's the ambition? Do you feel like there's going to be a series of cookbooks?
I think, yeah, I don't know. I'm not trying to write anything else right now. I think it was a lot. I've had 2 kids and 2 books. So I feel like
Sure.
taking a little bit of and I feel like the last book, this one for the newly diagnosed, I think I did a good job on it. I think it's helped a lot of people.
It helped a lot of people. Yeah.
I think it's a good resource. So I'm good with that now. I think there's a lot of room for things in the future. But I'm also knee deep in motherhood, and I have, a 2 and a 6-year-old too. So it's about finding balance too, right? And,
of course.
I want to help people, but gotta take care of these kids.
Oh, I get it. Yeah, of course. Completely. Look, I think that you have something to be so proud of. And I hope you feel so proud of yourself. I hope you really go to bed every night feeling I'm really proud of that. Because you really, really, really should. Certainly.
But I appreciate that.
No, really, sincerely. And it's really important work. It is helping people. Obviously, the popularity is a testament to that. But moreover, I'm excited just hearing you share more with me. I know people in my life that can benefit from it. So that's really important. So that's wonderful. I'm super glad you're doing this, and I'm super glad you exist. About that, kind of transitioning a little, you are a mama and you are sort of staying so busy and all this stuff, work aside, do you have any other hobbies? What are you doing just with that balance? I'm just so curious.
I know, right? I think that, we live, so I think I said I live in Southern California.
Right.
I don't know if I said that since we've been recording, but I live in Southern California, and we live a mile from the beach. So our favorite things are just being outside, and paddleboarding is really something that we enjoy as a family. Something that and hiking and just being outside near the beach and that kind of stuff too is probably what I find myself doing the most often.
This has been so great catching up with you. And it's you've done so much and you have so much to be proud of. I feel what an interesting career trajectory too, that you've been able to explore your passion, but in these niche industries like aerospace. And then, I mean, it's just amazing. It's
so weird to tell your story, and back on that kind of stuff too. But it's an honor to talk to you, John. I'm so happy for you too. It's it's so cool,
Well, it's hey, things work out for a reason, and it's so interesting to see how people evolve. And I don't know, you've always been, for the record, one of the kindest people. Lori's always been one of the sweetest people ever. And the type of person you want good people to find success, and you want to champion them and support them. So on the peripheral, again, even though it's been 20 years since we spoke, I've been so impressed with you, and I followed it just for my own selfish reasons too. I'm so interested in these things. So I'm man, okay, mental note. And I do feel you touched on this earlier, but I do feel we're bombarded with disinformation sometimes. There's always a fad diet. There's always something new coming. And, you want to be open-minded, so just having somebody who's actually a trusted resource and a subject matter expert like yourself, in their life or on the peripheral is really important. So I just feel you have such value to offer people. And I really do appreciate you honestly coming on the show and sharing so much of this. And to that end, where can people find you if they want to find your book or your online resources? Where can they go?
Yeah, so my book is everywhere books are sold. So, I mean, Barnes and Noble, Target, that kind of stuff, but Amazon is the easiest, Sure. So, if you just type diabetic cookbook in Amazon and it'll pop up. And and my website, it's laurizanini.com. So it's the same on all social media too.
Perfect. And I'll include all links in the body of this message. Lori, this has been totally my honor. Thank you again for coming on the show.
Yeah. Oh, mine too. I'm so glad, John. I'm so glad we connected. This has been fun. Thank you.
Completely my pleasure. Thank you so much. Again, this is True Story with John Gibson. Have a good day.